Let's move into what it means to become an expert. And there's different degrees of understanding something. And kind of contrast rote knowledge versus shallow versus deep knowledge and how that transition happens in a normal individual.
I give a definition of rote knowledge that you won't see most places. And the reason I did that was I wanted to distinguish between shallow knowledge and deeper knowledge. A lot of times when people say rote knowledge, what they really mean is what I would call shallow knowledge. I say rote knowledge means so you know the form of something, you really have no understanding of what it means. And so I give the example of like me and many other kids learning the Pledge of Allegiance when I was in kindergarten or in nursery school or whatever, pre-K. I could mouth the words. I had no concept that I didn't know what allegiance was. I didn't know what a flag represented, any of the rest of it. Shallow knowledge, in contrast, is where you understand some aspects of whatever it is you've learned, but you would not call it deep knowledge. You don't have a deep understanding of it. I mean, a simple example would be, what do you do when your phone hangs? Turn it off and turn it on, right? I mean, I know that, but I have no idea why that works, right? And so you would say, like, you could imagine gradations of deep knowledge, of coming to a deeper and deeper understanding of the electronics of a phone and why, the reasons that would hang and how resetting resolves those different types of problems in some potentially different ways and so on. So what I was trying to emphasize there is rote knowledge. People use the word rote knowledge a lot, and a lot of times it's like any learning that you don't like, you say, oh, that's just rote knowledge, right? It's used sort of as a cudgel to beat people up with. But by my definition, rote knowledge is actually pretty rare. It's pretty rare you're learning something you don't understand it at all. But what I was trying to emphasize is shallow knowledge is normal. Shallow knowledge is what happens first, right? When you're first learning something, of course your knowledge is shallow. And similarly, of course you would like your knowledge to be deep, but that knowledge is hard won. And so we do have to be selective about what we're going to spend our time on and come to that deep knowledge. And the other thing I like to emphasize is there are times that shallow knowledge is just fine, right? So one great example is reading a newspaper. You need background knowledge to successfully read a newspaper. So for example, the Washington Post may make a reference to Picasso, and they may not tell me Picasso was a really famous painter. And so if I don't already know that, I don't fully understand the article because they just dropped this reference to Picasso like I know who Picasso is, and I don't, right? But that shallow knowledge is all I need. If, on the other hand, I'm reading a book about art history, it could be that the expectation is I know much more about Picasso, and now my shallow knowledge doesn't serve me as well, right? So different sort of depths of knowledge are required for different types of tasks. So we shouldn't denigrate shallow knowledge.
But really, and there's no way to skip beyond that because the brain prefers when it's first learned something, it in concrete terms and it focuses on the surface structure. It doesn't identify the deep structure. The deep structure, the flexible knowledge only comes with lots of practice, examples, analyzing these examples to see what are the underlying principles and getting a lot more knowledge on that. And you give a great insight based on one of your papers about physics students. Those that are just starting physics, when they see problems, they're lumping them together, categorizing them by surface structures, like they're all inclined planes. When you get to the PhDs in physics, they're the underlying physics principles and is how they're categorizing them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I would love if that were my study. It's not. It's brilliant work by educational psychologist named Mickey Chi. Since that time it's been extended to other domains. And I think she actually is the one who did this study. They did it in young children who had expertise in dinosaurs and showed that 6-year-olds who know a lot about dinosaurs do the same sort of sophisticated categorization and thinking about dinosaurs that PhD level physicists do when they're thinking about physics problems. They're sorting dinosaurs not based on like, oh, this one's big, this one's small, but like this one's a meat eater. And they know that meat eaters tend to have big claws and big teeth and so on. So they have all this very well organized knowledge. So that's a key way of summarizing this is it's not just that experts know more, they do, but in addition, their knowledge is organized differently.